backstrap. It actually came from that guy right there. We're gonna grab it out of here. We're gonna thaw that bad boy out and smoke it up. I wanted to do a quick video on marinating elk backstrap that I'm gonna be smoking up. So depending on what you read and watch and everything else, really the recommended method is take this thing out of the freezer, throw it in the fridge on a plate and let it thaw for a couple days before you throw it on the smoker. On a case like this, it's a random Sunday, we had no dinner plans, and I wanted to expedite that method, so I found that throwing that in a vacuum sealed bag, which is what I do with all my meat, in a bowl of cold water and letting that just sit on the countertop, it really expedites that process. I don't have any ill effects from doing it that way, and we're not just keeping it out at room temperature so you don't have risk of bacteria, that type of stuff starting to grow. So it really is a fast way to thaw your meat. And then I wanted to talk to you about the marinade that I do. So real quick, down and dirty, and I'm not going to measure this out exactly. I'll probably throw some notes here in the video, but it's a blend of probably equal parts of soy sauce and the cocoa aminos, Montreal steak seasoning, and then Worcester sauce. Throw all that in a gallon Ziploc bag, freezer style, and let that marinate for, I typically do it for an hour or two if I've got time, and then we kind of move on to the smoke. I wanted to show a quick setup of my smoker I use. It's super basic. It's got a burner on the bottom, basically kind of like a hot plate. That burner is just heating up my, my cast iron skillet down there that's got my chips. There's water right above that, you can see in a tray. And then on the bottom of this down here, you can see that really all it is to adjust my temperature is a dial that's going to adjust the amount of propane as far as how big is that flame going to be. So it's tough on this. You can't go far. You got to get that thing set up. Hope you get to a stable temperature, throw your meat in there, and then continue to monitor. On days like today, it's a little breezy, so that breeze is going to push the heat in and out and move things around, and so your temperature is going to fluctuate depending on temperature outside, how much that wind's blowing. And then if you see here on the front of this smoker, it's got a temperature gauge on here, but it's not really accurate because all it will do is show you what it's reading from right behind that door. So in order to be successful in monitoring the temp of the smoker and the temp of your meat, I recommend getting a Bluetooth meat thermometer and at least 2 probes, because I will put 1 probe in the meat and I'll put 1 probe dangling down inside of there, and it acts as my thermometer that really it's going to give me an accurate reading of what the temp is by my meat, because depending on how high your trays are, like I said, the other conditions outside of your control, that might change. So you got to have meat probes if you're going to do this right. All right, we're smoking. Outside temp is showing 225, so we're prepped and ready to go. So I've got the probe in the meat, as you can see, and then I've got one sitting on the edge. So what I'm going to do is we'll throw this guy in there, be quick about it, and I'll show you here. Place that right in the middle. And then I mentioned this other probe, so I'm going to basically dangle that thing right in the middle so that it's getting a reading of where my meat is, give or take. And that will help me through the process knowing what kind of temp I have in there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to keep this about 225 throughout the smoking process. On a piece of meat this size, I'll throw the time as far as how long it takes, but typically this is taking me usually anywhere from hour 15, hour 45. So, and I'm looking for an internal temperature. I'm gonna set an alarm for an internal temperature of 135. Most guys wanna get it to 140, 145 for medium rare, but I'm gonna pull this out. I'm gonna do a reverse sear, so I wanna ensure that I'm pulling out a little under the temp I want to, because this isn't a super thick backstrap, and when I sear that, it's gonna bring up the temp. So I think I'll wind up where I want to be at the end of that process. All right, alarm's going off. We have 135. Let's turn this guy off. Get our meat out of here. As you can see, it's a good looking piece of meat. We'll go do a reverse sear on that. Okay, I'm a big proponent of cast iron, especially for something like this. It holds the heat. You can get it up high temp, because we're really looking to be we're at a medium heat right now on here with a propane stove. We want to be pretty hot. We don't want that butter to burn. We want to get a nice sear on here. So we're gonna throw the butter in here once this heats up. Then we're going to saute some of that garlic we have minced up. Right over here we got butter, we got garlic. Throw the butter in first. We'll get that garlic going, get a little flavor on there, and then we're going to sear both sides of that meat, and we're going to be spooning the garlic butter on top of it just to add some flavor. Minute and a half, 2 minutes on each side. I'm gonna turn the heat up a little bit here to make sure we don't lose that heat when we put that meat in there. All right, we're ready to take it off the heat here. We're gonna move it over to the cutting board. All right, take this off of our heat. We're gonna let that thing sit and rest for at least a couple minutes. I like to go 5, maybe even more than that as far as a rest period goes before we cut into it. All right, the moment of truth. It's time to cut this bad boy open. As you can see, the liquids continue to pop out of there. We're gonna give her a cut here and see how things look. Man, that consistency of pink throughout is just what you're looking for. As you can see, there's that hole from the probe, but man, that, I think once we did the reverse sear on it, I'm guessing we got it to probably 140-ish, but ideally, and when I'm serving this, I will cut it in thin slices like this. It just makes it easier to cut. As a lot of you know, venison, there's not any fat in this. Look at that beautiful meat. That's straight up public land. Spike, elk, Idaho. And I packed this guy out solo last year, so I'll try to add some pictures here to add to the story. But man, when you go through that by yourself to get this meat out of the woods, it just tastes that much better. And man, it's the best thing in the world when you're sharing that with your family. So hopefully y'all get to experience that and enjoy.